creating shared value, which John touched on in the beginning, is actually key and fundamental to our business process. As it's stated on the chart itself, for a company to be sustainable and successful over time, to create value for shareholders, it must also create value for society.
We are quite excited about the linking of enterprise development and preferential procurement from a South African transformation perspective, because it emphasizes the fact that you need to do things differently in where you spend your money in involving the community. And that's where we think we can make a real difference. And it's not about owner drivers, it's about much more than that. It's about how we build sustainable business in the community that can be part of the supply chain. Increasingly, it's not that economically viable for big companies like us to always own and operate their own vehicles. Today, Imperial Logistics only owns about 5,000 of the 10,000 vehicles it manages in Southern Africa. We need to do more of that and actually work with the community to be more sustainable. The imperative for us is to make supply chain management relevant. The worst position that we can be in is that supply chain management and logistics remains something in the back office, something that people only care about when things go wrong. And sustainability is one of those things that considers the entire business system, and therefore it's important for us to look at it. Our biggest dilemma is that when people outsource their supply chains, it makes it quite visible what the cost of logistics, cost of warehousing is. It makes it very difficult then, even more so, because it's so much more visible, to justify some of the real good things we know we need to do. When companies continue to measure short-term profit and short-term share price implications, how do we get them to pay more for the right thing? Our challenge internally is to baseline. So we can talk about what we need to improve, but for us to build up the database, to be able to understand where we are and where we're going from a sustainability point of view, emissions, environmental impact, impact on the community. In a big business which is quite decentralized, knowing what has happened in the past is often the impediment to starting to doing the new things for the future.
The challenge that we actually sit with is that the complexity of supply chains has become one that is widening the gap between those that are currently actively involved within those respective supply chains and those that want to gain entry to it. So the problem statement within that, which I'm looking at you for solutions to share with each other, is how do we ensure that those that have been marginalized from entry into the mainstream economy, that these imperatives of sustainability, which we cannot ignore, we have to actually address them as part of our business practices. How do we ensure that we're not actually widening the gap? And through the widening of that gap, creating more isolation and more barriers for entry. Because at the end of the day, we're not addressing the social challenges that we sit with. As I sit and listen to all of the presentations, there's a lot of work that has been done around how sustainable supply chain implementation and practices can take place within your respective corporations through repeating best practices that have been lived. But most of these, and the measurement of these, tends to be within the environmental element. Unfortunately, within a South African context, the burning platform that we sit with now is high levels of unemployment and high levels of inequality within society. And even the sustainability agenda that we've seen John speak about earlier in one of the slides, our highest priority and that is required is around creating an equitable society in the future. And that is a critical success factor for a sustainable future that we're trying to build. So how do we function as an organization? Our intention is not to promote transformation as a regulatory solution, but to basically look at how there's an untapped value that exists within our country for those that have been excluded from the mainstream economy, and to look at how day-to-day market mechanisms can be applied differently in order to gain, to provide access to entry, but in so doing, challenging the current business models that you are practicing.